It's Sunday morning. Do you know where your women's basketball news is? It's right here.
I got the juice, I play for hours. Coldest thing running, unlimited power. Doing my thing.
So I'm browsing threads. I'm trying to come back. I've been on a hiatus, and I caught a post from Renee.m_, who's somebody I followed since before when I was on. And she posted a link from CNBC, and it was a interview with CNBC's Alex Sherman, and they were talking to the Project B co-founders. Was it Grady Burnett and David Crane? I don't know these guys from Adam. I kind of just been taking the Project B news as it's come. So I got a bunch of stuff up here. If it looks like I'm reading many screens, I am. And the interview didn't give me the kind of vibes that I wanted to have. So from these kind of interviews, you want to get excited. You want to kind of understand the league and know more things, because right now nobody really has a great feel for Project B. Everybody's kind of like, this is a money laundering scheme and this and that and the third. And these guys didn't do anything to really drum up. It felt like I was in a board meeting. It just felt really boring. And but I do appreciate the interviewer, because Alex Sherman, he was asking the hard-hitting questions. He could have probably went harder. You know, like Kendrick, I can go deeper, I promise. But they were just, their answers were bothering me. But some of the stuff that came from that was they're saying which I think we already knew, November 2026 is the expected start date, which is this year. And a new name is coming soon. I would assume, obviously, they're not going to sit here and continue on with just Project B being the name of this league. I'm just reading off my notes, and I wrote a lot of notes, but we're going to kind of try to put them into well-trained thoughts versus sitting here writing a big old article. I did say that the interviewer was grilling these boys. He asked all the right questions, but they gave these lengthy, not saying anything answers mostly. Called them out on marketing as well. You know, when you talk about, if you guys have been paying attention to the other leagues that have been doing well here in America. So you got, WNBA hasn't been great. But that's why we noticed a big difference when we watched Unrivaled be born, because Unrivaled took the bar and threw it into the atmosphere. Nobody can touch them when it comes to marketing. Athletes Unlimited has been around for a while, and they do well. Again, the bar is set really low with the WNBA, so they were better. And you have Upshot for the people who aren't really psychopaths when it comes to basketball like I am. You might not know much about them, but even they have done their best in their interviews and their I don't really know the word for it when they have like these lives that they talk about the state of the league and things like that. Those have been more informative and uplifting in terms of how you view the potential success of these leagues. They have done more to make you feel like it's going to do something, even the interview with Fran Harris and Exalt, although there's not been much more past that one interview in their website, they have done more to say, okay, this could be something. But with Project B, outside of the money and the people you hire to play in your league, that's pretty much all we've been through, just all we've been set with. But no marketing besides that. We've yet to see anything there. And then just one quick thing. I hate Zoom interviews because it's less personal, and I don't know. It's like me making a YouTube video. It's like they probably have like something to read off of or something like that. And it's just, I would rather see this Alex guy grill them in person. That's just me. But it sounds like they also plan to do the same thing that everybody's been doing in terms of streaming these games on multiple different platforms, whether it be local or online. And they didn't mention the streaming partners and who they're planning on getting with, as far as like linear shows and all this other stuff, like almost like they were speaking about like an ESPN or NBC or something like that, something along those lines. They were really playing everything close to the chest, and that one seemed like it was really close to the chest. It was like he was really not wanting to talk about it. This I'm assuming Grady guy. When I use the picture, it'll be the guy that was like in the middle, did most of the talking, and he didn't really want to say too much about the platform and what they plan on doing outside of like kind of bouncing around saying we'll be on multiple platforms and we'll do what's best for the world to watch and things like that. But you got to also think that if you don't use the proper streaming service so that everybody can watch, you're going to lose viewership, because everybody can't go to some of these places that they're playing. The other part is the time difference. If you don't have places where people can go and then rewatch, that's another issue. So again, it would make sense if you have it all in one spot for a worldwide audience. Now, is the NCAA doing that? No. Is the WNBA doing that? Not really either. But again, you know, when you're at a level where you are with women's basketball and the greater media space, there is a place where you can take this and run away with it, because nobody's doing it the best, I don't think. Unrivaled even gave us Prime, and now they're on HBO Max. And then even then, still some of these games could possibly be other places. I'm still trying to figure that out. If they're all going to be on HBO Max and I can rewatch everything from there and watch them live, then cool. They're then still doing better than the WNBA app, where they had all the games watchable afterwards, but like during, you had to tune into ABC or wherever to watch the game, or ESPN, and it's just like, bro, I bought this app so I could watch all the games. Like, what's the point? So it doesn't sound like they're going to do anything to shift the space there. I don't think they're shifting the space for anything. I just think they're taking advantage of a blossoming market, discontent with the WNBA and all this other stuff. They're not really trying to make a new anything, but just a league. And you can tell by how they talk, act, it just doesn't feel genuine. The way they're going to play is like a Formula One style of play. I don't understand or know about Formula One, but they said the way they play is going to be like that. So they're going to play 7 tournaments, 3 in Asia, 3 in Europe, and 1 in the Americas. And by Americas, I don't know where he means by that. He just kept saying Americas. So, I mean, if we're talking about non-USA type, then maybe they're talking about South America. So we'll see. Again, I'm not sure. He was very close to the chest on a lot of this stuff. Wouldn't really give up too much information. But then there's a cup at the end, similar to these tournaments. So how you do in these 7 tournaments, all these teams, how you do in each of these tournaments is going to dictate, I guess, how you seed with the championship. And then from there, like you're getting a championship trophy for, he'd said this specifically, getting a championship for each of these 7 tournaments. In Asia, Europe, and the Americas, and then the final one will be the final one. So he's leaning on more of a European style versus an American style, whereas it's like play, tournaments, and then at the end you get hardware versus getting hardware all throughout the season. So, you know, here or there, it's not a bad idea, but you know, it's an interesting one to say the least. They said they've called the current 12 that were announced to playing in these leagues culture setters and a who's who. And I've seen these players: Jewel Lloyd, Alyssa Thomas, you know, some other people, and it's just nobody is the type of player that I would call a culture setter. Maybe I don't know these players at a personal level. Maybe they feel like they are, but I don't feel like they're like a who's who. Like, I don't know. I mean, you got Just, I forget how to pronounce her last name, from Lithuania as well, that's playing, that just got drafted by the Valkyrie, I believe. And I mean, again, it's a lot of different people. You know, Sophie Cunningham and some other ones, and it's just like these are players. These are players that have had success. But will I say that these are going to be people you want to like lean on as cornerstones? Maybe not. It's just a weird thing to say. And then for me, you know, someone who's done interviews for my line of work, you know, I've done several, you know, hundreds of emails, probably that too, hundreds of interviews, and this did not go the way I would want an interview to go. Like when I ask you, how would you feel if I put you in blank situation or whatever? Like they have these questions that they have us ask and things off of a piece of paper. And then I have the questions that I want to ask before I say yay, nay, or whatever. And if you're answering my question, not necessarily with a question, but with something that begs more questions, but not in the way that's conducive to an interview, it's going to make me feel like you don't know how to answer the question that I ask, even if it's as simple as, why are you doing this? And if you say, well, I feel like I wanted to have a basketball league, and then start talking about marketing, and it's just like, You didn't answer the question. And I feel like that's what Alex was saying. And throughout the whole interview is that it looked like he felt like they weren't answering his questions, but you're on a time crunch. You got to get through all the questions you have to ask. So you can't keep coming back because they would not just answer the question. So that's why I have said on social media as well, I'm just like, I hate corporate speak because it's just so bothersome. Doesn't get to the point. But yeah, no, this doesn't give any type of feels that I got for Unrivaled, Exalt, Upshot, Athletes Unlimited, even WNBL and EuroLeague. It's just, like I said, I've sat through a lot of things as far as corporate interviews and videos and conversations and read articles, and this feels like these guys are so far away from, these feels like the guys that you want to have pitching to founders and things like that versus the public. Like, those are two different ones. Like, the public wants to hear what you're doing, why you're doing, how you're doing. The founders and the people who you want to invest in things like that are going to want to hear the why, where's my money going, how's my money going, this, that, and the third. Like, these people probably don't really care about basketball. They just want to see it. It makes sense from a short-term goal, medium, long-term, who you're bringing in, how you're operating, where you're going. Some of the questions that they answered sounded more like boardroom answers, and I think that may just be the problem there, on top of the fact that, like I said, they still didn't answer questions. But I think maybe that's why it didn't do well for me, because I'm not, you're trying to get people like us to invest in things like that, at the very least with our time, and it was not working for me. But again, I'm a psychopath. I'm an enjoyer of basketball, and I'm going to be locked into it if I can, regardless. I mean, I'm not going to spend a bunch of money. Nobody's paying me to do this. So, I mean, if it's going to be some other streaming services, then I'll probably just have to get clips from somewhere or just not cover it. Who cares? Because if you're not going to make it easily accessible for the people that would possibly cover it, then the actual normal regular person who's not a psychopath like me and doesn't want to pull it all together, they're not going to be able to afford it or want to afford it. They're just going to be like, well, I got Unrivaled. I got the WNBA whenever that comes back. I got college basketball. We're cool. But what I'm actually interested is how are all these leagues going to coincide with each other? Because with all these leagues coming about, mostly just stateside, because there's always been overseas leagues, but they've been like the country's leagues. They've been, whatever. And so I wonder where Project B fits into all this, because I feel like Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, Exalt, if it gets off the ground, and Upshot are all leagues that kind of remind me of EuroLeague and the WNBL, where it'll be more of our players here, with some players coming from overseas maybe, but almost like, those different levels that you can play at throughout the United States. Just like you have different ones in Euro, the senior ones and all these other different A, B, and C leagues and stuff like that. This is what these leagues feels like, but it feels like Project B kind of like is out here by itself. It's not a foreign league. It's not a domestic league. It's a league that's just doing, bouncing all around. And if there's a league that I don't know that does that, then that's my own ignorance. But from what I do understand, it feels like, how does this one have success? How does the rest of like women's basketball in general coexist in terms of the new ones that are coming on? Like, it feels like the pool is not that big, like not big enough to be pulling from here and from there and from everywhere. And I don't know how long they run. Like, if they start in November, they're in the off season, so obviously, or they'd be in the off season unless the WNBA expands. Then it becomes, okay, well, do I play in Project B or the WNBA? Because me personally, I think that the WNBA should not expand backwards because you're going into the NCAA. I think you should expand forward and deal with whatever may come in terms of getting started off into the football seasons in both college and pro, and the NBA as well, and just have faith in your product versus damaging it by going into March, and then your players really have no time from coming from March Madness and finishing out their college seasons to then coming into the league, possibly missing training camp, there being no draft or draft combine unless you start games or training camp and then do the draft after. Like, it just doesn't make sense logistically. So it makes more sense for the WNBA to go forward and deeper into the year. And if that kills some of the leagues like, not necessarily kills Unrivaled, but does it, if it messes with their, which I don't think it will, because Unrivaled starts in January and then goes till the beginning of March. So Unrivaled would be safe. So realistically, it would only hurt Project B. Or if players were going overseas, which is a different thing. If you're going overseas, then go overseas. But I think as a league, if they do the women right with all their money aspects and things like that, then expansion, like if we're talking about perfect world, expanding out to the end of the year just makes more sense. It doesn't bother Unrivaled. Unrivaled can still have its success and continue on. All these other leagues would just basically be like, you don't make the league, you can go to Upshot, you can go to Exalt and stay here, and then till somebody's like, hey, why don't you come up to the WNBA, or invite you to a training camp. So I think they can all coexist, but I just wonder if somebody's going to get big enough, too big to squeeze out another. So it'll be interesting in this next year or so to see the survival of it all, because I think all of these leagues are supposed to start this year. I think Exalt is supposed to start this year unless they come out and say they're not going to be ready till 2027. Upshot's supposed to start in May, so we need to, I'm sure we'll be waiting on some words of wisdom from them and when they're going to be starting their drafts and things like that. Obviously, it would make more sense to start after the WNBA, so you can scoop all the players that, you know, don't have an invite to a combine, don't have an invite to a training camp and things like that, to then draft them and go forward from there. And then again, it just sounded like people who have heavy pockets with slight interest versus heavy pockets with slight interest versus people who have heavy interest with slight pockets. These are the kind of guys that, like I said, it just sounds like the people who need to be behind the scenes, behind the people who should be the faces, the people that have a love for basketball, have a love for the women's basketball, and know what's going on the face of it. Like, even me, I wouldn't be the person to put me up there, but you need to put somebody who is key and integral to your league, but like somebody like he spoke about, like Alana Beard. Like, somebody like that should be the front face of that, and then be able to ask them questions about it, and maybe have them both play off of each other versus putting these two guys that seem to me, again, just like people that should be in the background, not the foreground. I mean, because you're talking about having an interview with an investor. Like, I don't feel like I should be talking to an investor. I feel like, yeah, okay, we can talk to founders. Founders make sense, you know, but it was just weird. And then some of the stuff that they were saying about, like, it felt like he was going to say that they're going to destroy Unrivaled, but in a roundabout way. And this was the investor, I believe, that was talking. And he's like, you know, with the numbers and the success they'll have and things like that, it'll show itself as what was the right answer, some shape or form like that. I'm paraphrasing, but I just kind of thought that was interesting, because Unrivaled has been wildly successful, especially, like, the biggest part of it, you know, whether you like 3-on-3 basketball or not, it's the way that they market themselves, the way that they connect with their fan base, and it's just unprecedented. Like, no league is doing this. Nobody, not men, not women, nobody. Like, I think everybody could stand to learn from Unrivaled. So having hate towards Unrivaled is crazy after sitting and watching years and years, some people decades of this WNBA, and not seeing how Unrivaled has taken that and thrown it through the atmosphere and done it way better. Like, the WNBA presentation is trash. I love the WNBA. I love basketball, but when you watch from a production standpoint and you watch Unrivaled from a production standpoint, it is a very wide gap. Like, we're watching the WNBA and some of their pictures are flat, some of their pictures aren't the same, but just lineup pictures. Like, people post up, there's typos on nationally televised things, and it's all this other stuff that, yes, you have mistakes and things like that, but it's like players' names aren't getting pronounced properly when you have YouTubers out here that can pronounce all of the names properly. All it takes is a couple seconds of looking at it, listening to it, and then pronouncing it, versus doing it every single broadcast. Like, I can't stand listening to broadcasts, but I think that's just a sport-wide thing. Eventually these guys are going to get on your nerves, and you just watch it on mute sometimes. You know, and then how they present their awards and push them out to the public, and they don't, I mean, I get it, they're a big entity, it's kind of harder to maybe interact with their fans, but I feel like Unrivaled has really showed everybody what's capable of happening, especially in this world of social media. Everybody's through social media. While David Stern, Adam Silver said the whole thing about highlight culture, and that people really rather see highlights than the actual stuff. I don't agree is part of it, but I think he should be talking to everybody that's over there at Unrivaled in terms of boosting the NBA and somehow making it a more watchable product. I think part of what Unrivaled does would work for the NBA. It would work for many sports. I think a lot of people need to do that, and to do that, you have to have an open mind, and you have to not sit here and think that you're the best player, the best entity out there when it comes to covering something, because if somebody comes along and does it the right way, you can be moved out of the way. It always comes down to money though. So until somebody has the right amount of money, then, you can't move the old stalwarts out of the way and tell them to go sit down. We're going to do it the right way. We should have been doing it all along. And then my last really clip about it all was that he was saying he was using somebody like Alana Beard and how she had success, and the money she made with her career is the basis and their model for what they want to do for players in terms of getting them out and seeing the world and stuff like that, which is fine. But I don't think you should use a player's playing career as the support for your argument as to why it would be successful or should be successful, because realistically, while players want to go overseas and experience and things like that, majority of players, both current and past, are fighting for more money. These girls didn't do that because they wanted to do that. You come and tell me how many players want to bounce around and make all their money and grow and learn how to invest in things from going to millions of different countries all year round, not just in their season, but all year round, versus having a league that pays them what they deserve to be played. Like, we get to that point and then cycle that a couple of years, and then you tell me how many players are like, oh yeah, I still want to go out and about. They probably don't. And that's what they're fighting for. That's what the WNBPA and the league are fighting for, is to get, women paid more and paid properly, also taken care of, and, just grow the league in the way that it should go. And their argument for why they should be a successful counterpart to that is just kind of weird. It's obvious that they're taking advantage of the turmoil in the league and everything that's going on, but I mean, I would rather them be honest about it than to say no, this, that, and the third, but then everything they say, like, it just seems wolvy. It seems corporate-y. It seems WNBA in the worst way, like I put on many of my posts today, and I don't think that's something to be proud about, but we'll see. I could end up loving Project B, but just the start that it's had, marketing-wise, interview-wise, all this stuff has just not been the greatest thing to watch. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But until then, get excited for Unrivaled. It's tomorrow, and I cannot wait to cover this until it's done, and we'll wait to see what the WNBA does. I'll be here with all that news and any news for stateside women's basketball, and I'm gonna take a step back from NCAA to more focus on pro leagues, and then as players get drafted and stuff, I think I'll start going to look back and really watch their careers and get an idea of how they play and things like that. But until then, I'm just gonna focus more on things that I can because there's a lot of college, there's a lot of things like I can't do college and pros, so I think going forward, for the moment, I'm gonna focus on your leagues like Unrivaled and Upshot and the WNBA and if Project B gets going, just these main ones, not so much EuroLeague or the WNBL, and kind of keep you guys up to date on those, because it's things that I can keep up with, I can watch, and I'm very interested in. But until we got some more information, I will talk to y'all later this week.